Large-scale family estates and modern investment holdings currently manage trillions of dollars through a legal arrangement called a trust. This legal mechanism first appeared in the 12th century, devised by English knights to solve the practical hazards of feudal land ownership during war. These crusaders needed a way to ensure their land was managed, and their families were provided for during absences that could last for years. The instrument they created was not the product of a legislative design, but an improvisation born from the immediate threat of losing their property. This block represents the concept of fee simple. In medieval England, you held absolute legal title, or nothing. Holding title required fulfilling specific military and financial obligations to a lord. If a knight left for the Crusades, those duties remained. Transferring the land to a spouse was not a legal option. Under the rules of coverture, a knight's wife was barred from holding legal title to the family estate in her own name. To solve this, a knight would convey his land to a trusted friend, a person known as a fee to uses. This friend held the formal title, but promised to manage the land for the benefit of the knight's family. The arrangement relied entirely on that friend's honesty. If a fee decided to keep the land for himself, the common law courts provided no remedy. They recognized only the formal title, effectively siding with the person holding the deed over the person who actually owned the land. The strictness of the law protected the legal title holder, leaving the original owner and his family with no way to reclaim their property. Returning knights who found their land seized by dishonest friends began petitioning the king directly, asking for a decision based on fairness rather than the rigid letter of the law. These petitions were handled by the king's Lord Chancellor in a new body called the Court of Chancery. This court operated on the principle of equity, allowing judges to enforce informal promises that the common law ignored. Chancery's innovation split ownership in two. Legal title stayed with one person, while the economic benefit went to another. Courts now recognized the friend held the paper title, but the knight held the real benefit, creating an enforceable obligation to manage the property honestly. The use quickly spread beyond the Crusades. Franciscan friars used it to live in buildings without technically owning property, and wealthy families used it to shield their estates from taxes triggered by a formal change in legal title. By the 15th century, a wartime improvisation had become a standard method for the English gentry to manage their wealth and avoid feudal dues. This system created a massive fiscal problem for King Henry VIII. Because legal title rarely changed hands under a use, the crown was losing the revenue traditionally collected from heirs inheriting land. Henry attempted to ban uses through Parliament in the early 1530s, but he was blocked by landowners and lawyers who benefited from the loophole. In 1535, Henry pressured judges into ruling that certain uses were fraudulent and unenforceable. This cast doubt on decades of existing property arrangements across England. To resolve the uncertainty, Parliament passed the 1536 Statute of Uses. It collapsed the two titles back into one, forcing the beneficiary to become the legal owner and exposing them once again to heavy feudal taxes. The statute was so unpopular, it helped spark the Pilgrimage of Grace rebellion. The backlash forced Henry to compromise, leading to the 1540 Statute of Wills, which finally gave landowners the legal right to dispose of property by written will. Henry's attempt to end the practice showed that even a monarch's power struggled to override the persistent demand for flexible property control. Lawyers immediately began looking for a way to restore the benefits of the use without violating the specific wording of Henry's new statute. They found a gap in the law. The Statute of Uses only applied to land held passively, where the title holder had no responsibilities other than holding the name on the deed. If a landowner assigned active duties, such as managing a farm or collecting rent, the courts ruled that the statute did not apply. The split between legal and equitable ownership was restored. This technical distinction transformed the medieval use into the modern trust, allowing the separation of ownership to survive into the modern era. This battle established a recurring dynamic in law. When a government closes a loophole, the planning industry develops a more complex structure to achieve the same result. Today, this same logic supports revocable living trusts, dynasty trusts, and grantor-retained annuity trusts. These modern instruments operate on the exact same foundation that Chancery originally built for those crusading knights. Families still use this separation to control the timing of an inheritance, to protect assets from an heir's creditors, and to minimize the tax burden of a direct transfer. The trust survived because the human incentive to control property across generations has proven more durable than the laws designed to restrict it.